Hi, welcome to the first chapter of uh, Animal and Plant Physiology. Having the course code SPF3043. In chapter 1, we will discuss about topics which are related to body organization. Before we discuss in detail, we shall look at the focus of this chapter. First, the focus of this chapter will be levels of biological organization, types of animal tissue, organs, and organ systems in animals, as well as plants organization. The different levels of biological organization is referring to the hierarchical organization of structure in multicellular organisms. The hierarchical arrangement of multicellular organisms begins at the simplest level, which is known as the chemical level, followed by cellular level, tissue level, organ level, system level, and finally the organismal level. We will discuss on the levels of biological organization in a multicellular organism by firstly looking at the different tissue types which is available in an animal, and eventually we will look at the different types of cell type that is under each of the tissue types. In general, in an animal, there are four different major categories of tissue type. The first is the epithelial tissue, second is the connective tissue, third is the muscular tissue, and finally is the nervous tissue. In general, the main function of the four different types of tissue are listed in this slide. Firstly, epithelial tissues function by covering the body surface and line the body cavities. Secondly, connective tissue. The general function is to bind and support the parts of the body. Thirdly, the muscular tissue provides movement as well as support. And finally, the last type of animal tissue is the nervous tissue, which functions to conduct nerve impulses and interprets stimuli. Now we shall begin by looking at the different types of cells that is categorized under the epithelial tissue. Under the epithelial tissue category, there are four main types of cells. The first is the squamous epithelial cell. Second is the cuboidal epithelial cells. Third is the columnar epithelial cells. And the fourth is the pseudo-stratified epithelial cells. These cells could be differentiated with each other by looking at the shape as well as the structure. Now we shall begin by looking at the structure as well as the characteristics of the first epithelial cells, which is squamous epithelial cell. These cells is kind of flattened in terms of the structure as what is being shown here. And squamous epithelial cell could be found in the inner lining of the lungs as well as in the blood vessels. The second type of cell is called the cuboidal epithelial cell. Cuboidal epithelium, in terms of the shape, it looks like a cube. Okay, these cuboidal cells could be found in the inner lining of kidney tubules. The third type of cells which having the structure of pillar shape is called the congruent epithelium. These cells could be found in the inner lining of digestive tract as well as the small intestine. And for pseudo stratified epithelium, the cell shape is kind of irregular, and these cells could be found in the lining of the trachea. These cells are able to produce mucus, which is a sticky-like liquid that is very important in removal of pathogens as well as dust that accidentally enter the body through the respiratory tract. The epithelial cells are constantly exposed to abrasion. Hence, epithelial cells are usually replaced by cell division. The second type of animal tissue that we will be discussing is referring to the connective tissue. In general, there are four main different types of connective tissue. The first is the cartilage tissue. Second is the fibrous tissue, adipose tissue, and the bone tissue. There are two different types of fibrous tissue. The first we call it as the loose fibrous tissue, and the second is the dense fibrous tissue. In general, loose fibrous tissue or loose fibrous connective tissue could be found below the epithelial layer. The main function of loose fibrous tissue is as a protective covering over the organs. The loose fibrous connective tissue cell is called the fibroblast. The second type of fibrous tissue is the dense fibrous tissue or dense fibrous connective tissue. Dense fibrous connective tissue contains collagen fibers that are tightly packed together. Examples of structure that is containing dense fibrous tissue is tangle. The tangle structure is shown in this diagram. Tangle is a connective tissue that connects bones and muscles. Another example of the structure in animal that is having dense connective tissue is the ligament. Ligament is a structure that connects bone to bone. Now we try to look at the second type of connective tissue, which we call it as the cartilage. The cartilage could be found surrounding surfaces of the bones between two joints. The main function of cartilage is to keep joint motion fluid as well as cushioning bones against impact. The third type of connective tissue is the adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is composed of fibroblasts that are able to store fat. Adipose tissue is usually found beneath the skin, around the heart, as well as around the kidney. In humans, adipose tissue is prominent in the abdomen area. Accumulation of fat in the abdomen layer of a human will result in a huge bulge, which we call it as the belly. And finally, the last type of connective tissue in our discussion today is the bone. Bone is the most rigid connective tissue, and the matrix of bone mainly consists of inorganic salt deposited on collagen fibers. In general, bones are very important in an animal because it provides support for movement, protects organ and tissue, stores calcium, and produces blood cells. Before we move on to describing another type of tissue, we shall look at the blood. The blood is also a type of connective tissue in animals. Basically, that could be categorized or divided into three categories. The first is the red blood cells, second is the white blood cells, and platelets. The diagram here shows the picture of red blood cells as well as different types of white blood cells and platelets. Red blood cells is indicated in this diagram by the red color cells as shown in this diagram. Red blood cells usually, in terms of shape, it is round. To be more specific, we call it as the shape as biconcave. In other words, the red blood cells shape is known as or described as biconcave. The main function of red blood cells is to carry oxygen. A red blood cell is red in color because it contains hemoglobin. A red blood cell does not have nucleus. The second component of blood is called the white blood cells. There are many different types of white blood cells that could be found in an animal. However, in general, the function of white blood cells is to protect against pathogens or protect against infection. White blood cells and red blood cells are produced in the bone marrow. Now we look at the last component of the blood, which is the platelets. Platelets plays a very important role in blood clotting. Platelets very often is described as having a irregular shape and have no nucleus. Okay, now let us move on to the third type of tissue that is present in human, which is muscular tissue. In general, in animals, there are three different types of muscle tissue, which we call it as skeletal muscle tissue, cardiac muscle tissue, and smooth muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle tissue is the type of muscle tissue that is attached to the bone. Skeletal muscle tissue facilitates movement. together with bones, enables humans to move and enables other physical activity to be carried out. Next is the cardiac muscles. Cardiac muscles is the muscle that is found only in the heart. The function of cardiac muscles is to facilitate the action of contraction in the heart. The third type of muscle tissue type is the smooth muscle. Smooth muscle could be found in the linings or in the lines of walls of organs and blood vessels. For instance, the smooth muscle that is in the lines of the esophagus enables movement of food in the form of bolus from the mouth into the stomach. And the last type of tissue that is present in animals is the nerve tissue. In general, nerve tissue enables communication that occurs between cells, as well as to control the body function and respond to the environmental stimuli. The cell of the nervous tissue or the nerve tissue is called the neuron. This is an example of a neuron. A neuron, or very often we also call it as the nerve cells, consists of three main parts in terms of the structure. The first is the cell body. Second is the dendrite. And finally is the extension, a long extension which we call it as the axon. Now we try to look at or discuss on the aspect of organ and organ system that is present in animal. Organ system in animal could be divided based on their function into 5 main categories. The first is those organ systems that are involved in transport of fluids. Second is body maintenance. Third is control of the body system. Third is the sensory input and motor output. And the last one will be the reproduction. For the organ system that is involved in transport of fluids are cardiovascular system and lymphatic system. Cardiovascular system basically is referring to the system that circulates blood throughout the whole body. Cardiovascular system comprises of 2 main structures. The first is the heart and second is the blood vessels. A lymphatic system is a network of tissue, vessels and organs that work together to move a colorless, watery fluid called the lymph back into your circulatory system. The lymphatic system also plays a very important role in protecting your body from illness-causing invaders such as bacteria and viruses. Now we try to look at the organ system that is involved in the maintenance of the body. There are 3 main organ systems in animal that is involved in the maintenance of the body. The first is the digestive system, the second is the respiratory system, and the third is the urinary system. The digestive system includes structures like the mouth, pharynx, throat, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and anus. The main function of the digestive system is to process and extract nutrients from the food that you have ingested. Secondly, is the respiratory system. Respiratory system is a network of organs and tissue that helps you to breathe. The respiratory system in animals, like humans, includes the airways, lungs, and blood vessels. The muscles that covers your lungs are also part of the respiratory system. These parts work together to provide more oxygen throughout the body and clean up waste gases such as carbon dioxide. The pandemic that is occurring nowadays is caused by a virus which we call it as COVID-19. Actually, it's a type of virus that attacks your respiratory system. Hence, it is very important for you to be vaccinated as early as possible as a step to prevent the occurrence of the symptoms that is caused by the virus. The urinary system, also known as the renal system or urinary tract, consists of the kidneys, ureters, bladders, and the urethra. The purpose of the urinary system is to eliminate waste from the body, regulate blood volume and blood pressure, control levels of electrolytes and metabolites, and regulates the blood pH. Now we will look at the organ system that is involved in the control of the body system. In general, there are two types or two examples of organ system that is involved in the control of the body system. The first is the nervous system and the second is the endocrine system. The nervous system is the part of an animal's body that coordinates its behavior and transmits signals between different body areas. In vertebrates, it consists of two main parts called the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system contains the brain and the spinal cords. The endocrine system, on the other hand, is made up of all the body's different hormones, regulates all biological processes in the body from conception through adulthood and into old age, including the development of the brain and nervous system, the growth and function of reproductive system, as well as the metabolism and blood sugar regulation. Now we move on to the fourth type of organ system that is involved or function as sensory input and motor output. The examples are integumentary system, the skeletal system, and the muscular system. Let's look at the first example. The integumentary system is the set of organs forming the outermost layer of an animal's body. It comprises of the skin and its appendages, acting as a physical barrier between the external environment and the internal environment that is served to protect and to maintain. Secondly, the human skeleton is the internal framework of the human body. It is composed of around 270 bones at birth. This total decreases to around 206 bones by adulthood after some bones get fused together. The bone mass in the skeleton reaches maximum density around age of 21. The muscular system is an organ system consisting of skeletal, smooth and cardiac muscles. It permits movement of the body, maintains posture, and circulates blood throughout the body. The muscular system in vertebrates are controlled through the nervous system, although some muscles can be completely autonomous. Lastly, we will look at the organ system of reproduction. The reproductive system of an organism, also known as the genital system, is the biological system made up of all the anatomical organs involved in sexual reproduction. Many long-living substances, such as fluids, hormones, and pheromones, are also important accessory to the reproductive system. From our discussion of biological organization in animals, now we move on to our discussion in the organization in a plant. Plant organ system. The vascular plant have two distinct organs, a shoot system and a root system. The shoot system consists of stems, leaves, and the reproductive parts of the plant, which is usually referring to the flower and fruits. The shoot system generally grows above the ground where it absorbs the light needed for photosynthesis. The root system is the descending or growing downwards portion of the plant's axis. When a seed germinates, radicle is the first organ to come out. It elongates to form primary or the taproot. It gives off lateral branches, which could be secondary and tertiary roots, and thus form the root system. Now we move on to our description on the main type of tissues in plant. In plant, this tissue could be differentiated into three main tissue types, which we call it as the dermal tissue, the vascular tissue, and the ground tissue. Each plant organ, which is referring to the root, stem, and leaves, contain all three tissue types. Dermal tissue covers and protects the plant and controls gas exchange and water absorption. The ground tissue carries out different functions based on cell type and location in the plants. For example, parenchyma cells in the leaves involved in photosynthesis, and parenchyma in the roots involved in storage of food. In general, the ground tissue functions are such as provide supporting matrix for vascular tissue, provide structural support for the stem, and help to store water and sugar. Now we look at the third type of tissue in plants, which is the vascular tissue. In general, vascular tissue transport water, minerals, and sugar to different parts of the plant. Vascular tissue is made up of two specialized conducting tissue, which is the xylem and the phloem. Xylem tissue transport water and nutrients from the root to different parts of the plant, and also plays a role in structural support of the stem. Phloem tissue transport organic compounds from the site of photosynthesis to other parts of the plant. The xylem and phloem always lie adjacent to each other in a vascular bundle.